Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. This week, I'm joined with Sarah, and Sarah is a virtual PA, and she does many, many things, the things you don't want to do, or is your, and I quote, your 25th hour as a business owner. So, enjoy this interview. I'll see you very, very soon. But if you did enjoy this episode and would like not to miss the next episode, then make sure to be subscribed to the channel, and I'll leave Sarah's links in the description down below, and I'll see you very, very soon.
Right. So my name's Sarah Lawrence, and I run a business called Pink Spaghetti PA Services. I'm based in Salisbury in Wiltshire, and my business is as a virtual assistant. But I think actually a lot of people say that I'm a lot more than just a virtual assistant, as I undertake quite a lot of marketing and promotional work for businesses. The role I play is to be an outsource or a virtual member of somebody's team for their office.
Mhm. So what have you, I think, is the interesting conversation would be like, you've already sort of briefly mentioned it about marketing and promotion, but I think the main thing that, like, the question that would jump to me, and one of the first questions I had, as we met, was, well, what can a virtual assistant do?
Okay, so a virtual assistant is somebody that works from their own office. For myself, it's working from home. And I offer services to other businesses, mainly small business owners, to take on the work or tasks that they're not able to do, or they don't have time to do, or they don't like to do. For example, I've got clients that I do a lot of social media marketing for. So I do posting on the different social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I also create and manage newsletters and email marketing for clients, which could be involving just a monthly, this is what I'm up to newsletter, or it could be a very more specific targeted sort of marketing campaign via email, telling people what they're doing in their own business. I also write blogs, which people put onto their websites, or they could use them perhaps as LinkedIn articles for their businesses. So yeah, that's so one of the main parts of it. I also do more of the kind of traditional PA services. So I have clients that I do diary management for, email management for, and I write minutes up for meetings. So currently a lot of meetings obviously being held over Zoom or other Skype or what have you. So I write up the minutes for those meetings and send them back to them. So it's kind of very varied what I do. I pretty much can do most things. And if I can't do something, I have a big network of people behind me that can.
Mm-hmm. No, that's interesting to hear, because I think there's and that's why I wanted to open with that question, was because a lot of people, I think for me anyway, are going to be asking, what's the difference between me bringing in someone and then outsourcing someone, virtually or digitally, and what are the benefits? What are the benefits, and not to side that, have you seen or felt that some people should be doing it, I guess, in some ways digitally more than they should be doing it? So not actually hiring a specific PA in house, but specifically looking to kind of outsource it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things which for somebody who working virtually like myself, like a virtual assistant, is for a business to take on somebody on sort of PAYE on their payroll is a big responsibility for them, and a lot of the business don't really maybe have enough work to take somebody on as a full-time PA, or they might just have a particular project that they need to outsource. So, for example, something I have done is done some sort of database CRM work. Somebody's moving from one CRM platform to another, it's just a project in its entirety. So they don't really want to employ someone, but they just need to get somebody else to do that work. So it takes away the responsibility for that company, that they don't need to employ somebody and they don't have to have a headache of national insurance and pensions and all those sort of things. So it's a massive benefit. Somebody, I work as a kind of a pick up, pick down, put down. So this means that I can do as many or as little hours for my clients. So I have clients, some of my clients say, I want you to do, say, 12 hours a month work for me, and it's always the same. Some clients, I might do 6 hours one month, I might do 12 hours the next month. The following month, I might not do any. So it's very much a pay-as-you-go type of business model, which small businesses is very appealing. It's risk, there's no risk, is risk averse completely for them. They literally get what they pay for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's, going to be a, natural progression, especially as businesses sort of come out of this stage of COVID and look at kind of, how is there ways that I can optimize what I'm doing so I can spend my time running the business and working out how to grow and generate more revenue and etc. And what are those activities or what are those things that are eating up time that otherwise, then allow me to be less optimal in a day, for example.
Totally. And also, I think it's people realizing that because everyone's had to work from home, people are realizing that you don't need to be in an office, you don't need to be sitting next to somebody in order to be able to do the work. And I think that's a huge benefit for somebody like myself. And because of that, I picked up a lot of work over the last 5 months because people are realizing they don't need somebody there. And working from a remote place is just as effective as somebody sharing an office with you. So yeah, it's very.
To anyone who's specifically skeptical, because I know there's some people who will be kind of, I'll use the term that they're used to working in person or they prefer to have their PA near them or whatever. What kind of advice would you give to people who are looking to possibly, perhaps COVID was in a situation where they possibly had to let some of their staff go, unfortunately, and then they don't have a PA, but they need some services. What advice would you give to people who are transitioning from having a in-person PA or that's what they wanted to have to having someone who is more, I guess, remote or virtual or, however you want to describe that?
I think a lot of it is down to people building up a trust and relationship. So I think it's you can still have communication and conversation with people, and the likes of using Zoom or Skype or have you still get that interaction and that personal interaction. And I just keep in contact with my clients all the time. Some I keep in contact with more so than others because that's what they want. And I'm happy to do so. And we're in contact on Zoom, we're in contact on phone, on emails. So I think it's just building up that trusting relationship. And for me, being trustworthy is absolutely key. And I think my clients appreciate that. I think a lot of people probably think, oh, they're sitting at home. How do I know they're actually doing the work? And I actually do use a tracker for that in order to be able to track my time. So if a client says to me, what have you been doing? I can print a report out and say, these are the hours and this is what I've been doing during those hours. But in all honesty, once you've got a good working relationship with people, it doesn't, it doesn't bother them. They don't need to see a report because they can see the benefits through the work that I'm doing.
Okay, no, that's interesting to hear. I mean, a question which jumps to mind to me would be specifically, how did you get started in this? I guess is the simple answer to the question, but more, how did you sort of start doing this in regards to is this what you wanted to do originally, or is this sort of a happy accident, or what? Like, how's that process for you?
I think the way you described a happy accident is really the way I would say. Yeah, I actually spent 20 years working in travel in a corporate world, in a technology world as well. And I actually, well, I actually was made redundant, but at the same time, I was feeling like I needed to change anyway. So actually being made redundant was in itself a happy accident for me, because it made me think about what else did I want to do. And in my career for 20 years, I was an account manager, I was a sales manager, I worked in sales and marketing. So for me, it was what skills can I transfer and how can I use them in a different world. And I've always wanted to help other people. I wanted to work for charities, and I'd still like to be able to offer some charity work. And I think, well, it'd be good to be able to work and help small businesses in the local area. I've always worked doing a lot of traveling around, and I wanted to stay local, which fitted in with my own personal life, as I've got 2 children. So I really was just looking on Google, and seeing what is there, what opportunities are there, and then I sort of stumbled across Pink Spaghetti, which is a franchise sort of model business, and looked at Pink Spaghetti, couldn't find anything wrong about it whatsoever. Went into a fine-tooth comb into the details of it, and just thought I'm just going to go for this. I really like the sound of it, and I think it's going to suit me both personally and professionally at this time in my life.
No, definitely. I think that's interesting to hear because I think for me, it's kind of one of those things where people's stories into business are always different. You know, some people are making the best of a bad situation, or this is the only thing they wanted to do, or etc. So I think it's interesting to hear from other business people about how they started and how they kind of developed their way into where they are now. Have you seen, I think the question for me, I mean, it's been interesting watching the social media space as it's kind of changed this year specifically. Have you personally or professionally seen that, say for example, let's wind the clock back to this time last year, to give some context, is at filming, it's the 7th of September, and, you know, did you see sort of pushback in regards to social media marketing and more, I guess, I think people were more, personally anyway, I think people were more tailored to billboards, newspapers, that kind of advertising more than social media advertising. Have you seen a kind of, like, in comparison to where we were last year, have you seen a definite increase in demand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this whole COVID situation has just made it spiral, which actually makes it in a way it's harder to be noticed. Um, I think a year ago, not so many businesses were on social media, so in a way, it was if you were, it was easier to be noticed. Um, and I think the social media platforms were easier, made it easier to be noticed. I think, especially organically, I think now the social media platforms become more savvy. They are looking at ways to be able to monetize what they're offering, um, which is understandable. Especially with COVID, everyone's had to go into the social media world and embrace it, which is, I think, it's been great for myself because I've been able to educate people and take on doing people's social media, which is something which is very time consuming if you're going to do it well, and it's something which people don't have had the time to do. But I think it's definitely increased to the point of saturation, which I think a lot of people have said it's completely saturated over the last few months. But then if you're not there, your competitor is, so therefore you have to be there. So you've got to be in it to win it, sort of thing. I think it's very much on the increase, but I think also the types of posting have changed as well. I think over the last year, there's been definitely a move towards, people want more. So, before just seeing somebody's written words was enough to be engaging, but people become more sophisticated and become much more aware of how social media works, the posts and what you're doing with them has to become more sophisticated. So there's been a definite move towards video and towards images, and moving images, and the type of engagement, and people are having to become more and more imaginative with how they post and what they post, and the hashtags they're using, and everything else. So it's definitely been a shift, and it's where does it go from here, really?
No, absolutely. And I think it's going to be, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting to see kind of where social media is in the next year. A year from today, for example, a year forward in 2021, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what content works really, really well, what content is really, really, really popping, so to speak, then in comparison to what's popping now or what's going really, really well now. For those people who, I think are either starting out on social media, have been starting out on social media, are looking to start on social media perhaps, what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking to start creating content?
I would say pick your platform. Obviously, there's different platforms that are available. And the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're on the right platform. So you need to look at your audience and where are your audience. And your audience might not be necessarily where you think they would be. So, for example, you could be if you're a very visual business, you might actually want to be on Instagram. You might not think you might think Instagram is just for the young, but actually a lot of older people are using Instagram now. And depending, if you've got something which is even gardening, showing before and after on Instagram is very effective if you think that's where your audience is going to be. And a lot of the time the audience is there. So I think you've got to pick your platform. If you're a business to business, you might be looking more at LinkedIn rather than onto Facebook, for example. But Facebook is more of a B2C. So if if your client base are not business owners, but they are individual clients, customers, then you need to be on the Facebook. But then, there's new platforms coming out all the time, and people are moving towards things like Pinterest as well. You just got to pick your platform to start with. Once you've got your platform, I would say to focus on it, and work to how the platform works. So, for example, if you're on Twitter being a very fast platform, you've got to be posting, they say, at least sort of 5-6 times a day. In order to be noticed, whereas LinkedIn, it's less number of posts are required in order to reach your audience. And then you can use things like with LinkedIn you can use things like the articles where your connections are actually told that you put an article on, so you're more likely to get people to read it, whereas people might miss a post. And you say on Facebook, it's depending on what time of day. A lot of people sit on Facebook in the evening, so maybe that's where your client base is. So pick your platforms and make sure that you're doing the right number of posts for that platform, depending on the speed of the platform. So Instagram, Twitter are a lot faster than, say, Facebook and LinkedIn. So you need to get that key first of all, and then the types of posts that you would want to do, again, is depending on what you're offering. I would say the more visual the better, because you really need to have something that's going to make people stop and want to read, and as we said, it's such a saturated market really that you've got to really have something that's going to pop out, that people are going to actually stop and want to read it and look at it or watch it.
Mm. No, absolutely. I think it's very important for people who are looking to start getting into content to understand what their reason is for creating content first before just going out and creating content, because and whether that's having a conversation with someone like myself or someone like Sarah, to have that kind of more, I guess, trained brain to know what could work, won't work, has worked, won't work, etc. I think is important. But for those people who, maybe those people who have been on social media for a bit or started when COVID hit, or, were looking to really start when COVID hit, they are looking to really, I guess, have something or up their content or up what they're doing, so they can stand out more. What kind of things have you found that work really, really well to help with kind of So, for example, there's 3 brands that are all doing a very similar thing, but this one brand is going to do something or do something to make sure they stand out in comparison to brand A or brand C.
Okay, so I think you ultimately need to understand, what are you actually trying to achieve by going onto social media? Are you trying to get a bigger audience? Are you trying to push people to your own website to get some more engagement on your website? So I think you need to understand, think, what am I actually trying to achieve here by posting on social media? Um, and and really, it's engagement, and you can be putting on posts every single day, but if you're not actually engaging with other people, then it sort of becomes a bit wasted. You need to be able to comment and give advice, and people really like to feel, because they don't actually get to meet you in person on social media, they like to get to know you as a business. So they want and build up that trust, because people aren't really going to buy from somebody that they don't really trust or they don't know. So it is a long game, but at the same time, it's giving a little bit about yourself to people. It's giving the expert advice in your area. It's responding to people if they have a question, to try and be helpful, just to sort of build up that trust and respect from other people, which maybe your competitors might not be doing. So I think people are more likely to go to those people that have offered help and advice in the past. I think you have to make sure that you are giving as well as taking, as a business.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think for me personally, I've found the more I give or the more I sort of put out as long as it's like valuable or high quality content, then the more I get back, if that makes sense. So it might not be, for example, the podcast is a key example of this. It might be I do 10, 20 episodes, but by like episode 20, I'm not actually necessarily going to, by the time episode 20 is released, I'll see a return on it, but not by me doing the 10. It's because I've done 10 consistency or consistent episodes that are valuable, right? That are, from whatever reason, that could be something that, I learned something today, or, it's entertaining, or both. And I think that having different levels of content, so whether that's audio content, visual content, written content, even if it's just photo images, to and working with someone or yourself to help them be cohesive across your feed and work together. So, for example, if you're going to have a schedule for content, a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is a lot of content strategy and a lot of content structure stuff. So, I help businesses to build certain content strategies around, if they want to do a podcast, okay, this is how that would look. Oh, they want to do some video, okay, this is how this video would look. Why are they doing that, etc. as well. Have you seen that you're kind of, because I know we talked at the beginning about you do a lot more than just social media marketing, but I think, have you found that what you're actually enjoying or doing the most out of everything you quote unquote can do, um, is social media marketing, or would you rather be doing something else?
No, I think I'm say I would say 90% of my work is social media marketing. It's just social media, but also doing a lot of email marketing as well. So I think it's and blogs. I would just say marketing rather than just social media marketing. And I do enjoy it. And yeah, I enjoy a lot of my clients. They don't really know what they want, so they will come to me and say, I need to write a blog. I've kind of got a rough idea. I'm not quite sure what I want to do. They will just say, can you go and do something? Can you go and investigate, or can you go and write something? So, and I enjoy the challenge of having to do that. When you get it right and the client comes back and says, yeah, I really like that, it's a great feeling, and it's nice. And then you can see it out there, and they put it out on their own social media, and you think, it's fantastic, and they get really good responses from what you're writing. So I do really enjoy that side of my work.
No, I think that's definitely good to hear, and I think it's something which, because I think a lot of people, especially some who are starting out in business, they kind of see like marketing as this big overwhelming thing. Right? They know they should be doing it. They know they could be doing it, but they don't necessarily know how's best to start doing it because it's like this. I could do this. Could do this. Could do this. Could do this. So, you know, I think that with the blogs and what you've kind of talked about as well is that kind of for me and how I see it anyways, that kind of first step into the content marketing side of marketing. And I think it's important to kind of set those foundations first to understand what you, again, as you correctly and for obvious reasons, you know, went on to say, you know, about kind of why you're doing it and how, because I think if you go about it in the regards to like, oh, you're going to put out X, Y, or Z, what, you know, is that really going to actually necessarily help your business, right? You know, at the end of the day, is the piece of content eventually going to earn you revenue or earn, you know, help you with your reputation, which in turn means you make more money, right? Because at the end of the day, or make money, right? At the end of the day, that is what we as business owners, or the reason why we're doing it is to make a profit, right? At a base level, it is. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into that and a lot more that goes around it, but yeah, I think it's interesting to understand the the relationship firstly that content sort of plays, and but then also then how I guess in some ways easy it can be to create content. Have you found it's very or some clients or yourself have found it very very challenging to create content, or is that kind of an easy process for you?
I think it depends entirely on the industry that I'm writing for. So my clients are really, really varied. I have some which are much more in the sort of the corporate world. I also have ones which are more artisan type clients. So they're really, really varied across the. But actually, that makes it more interesting because I get, you know, one day I could be writing content, you know, about card payment systems. The next day I could be writing an article about making jewelry. It's really, really varied, um, which keeps it interesting for me. Is it hard to find the content? Yes, sometimes it is, but that, you know, that's what they're paying me to do. And I find that once you get a few ideas, it kind of triggers off other ideas, and once you get in the flow, I think the key thing about writing content is to make sure you're in the right mindset at the time. You know, there are days that I'll sit there and go, do you know what, I can't do this. I'm not in the right space, and you have to be in the right mental space to write good content, and to make it relevant to what, you know, what the business is. So, you know, pushing out content for the sake of it is not necessarily going to actually do benefit my clients or in any business. You've just got to be in the right headspace in the at that time. And I think the right images or videos or what have you to go with it is really important as well. To have something that's exciting for people to actually look at or want to look at. Um, I think a lot of the stuff is people look and value is the kind of the behind the scenes type of images. People like to see what's going on behind the scenes in businesses. So it's just finding the right topic really, which I enjoy doing.
No, absolutely. I think it's you know, I'm kind of glad you brought up behind the scenes, because behind the scenes for me has been a very interesting kind of forte to, you know, explore and create content for and create content around, if that makes sense. And have you found that, you know, people well, firstly, should people be using Instagram stories, and secondly, if they should, how should they, would you say?
Um, yes, absolutely. They should be using Instagram stories, and they're becoming much more popular. And you know, the fact that you can also share them into Facebook as well, because the relationship between Facebook and Instagram is so strong. Um, so yeah, I mean, people are looking at Instagram stories. It's something which is short lived. It only lasts for what, 24 hours. But people do you know, people do stop and look at them. and probably more so than necessarily than the post itself, just because where they're located as well on your page. And behind the scenes is a really good way of putting a story out there. It makes it a bit more interesting.
No, absolutely. I think it also can be one of those situations where you can add that personal touch that we touched on earlier, to your content, because it allows you to kind of, I guess, in some ways, deliberately create raw content that can show the real inner workings of a business, and kind of show, this is what the day to day is, right? This is what the knit and grit and the, what, for example, in my case, what video production looks like from the inside, because I think, I'm sure it's the same with what you do as well. There's a lot of kind of, oh, you just get to play around with the camera, for example, in my case, where that, yes, part of my job is to play around with the camera, but the majority of the time and the majority of my job is actually to, have that conversation with that client to make sure that we're creating content that's relevant. One, two, then have my expertise on how to go about creating that content. Have you found there's kind of a, I'll use the term misconception on how easy your, whether that's the social media side or the other aspects of what you get outsourced to do, can be very easy?
Oh yes, and I do get some people saying to me, you're expensive for what you do, and it's yeah, and you kind of think, well, actually, if you had to go away and write content and write posts on variety of different subjects and topics every single day, it is, and and also have to have the right frame of mind in order to do it. As I said earlier, you've got to have be in the right space mentally to do it. It isn't easy to be able to do that every day, and I juggle a lot of clients as well, so having the ability to juggle from one to another is not all that easy. And it's having that knowledge that my clients know that the work they know the level of work I'm going to put out, and they value me. And if somebody turns around and says, oh, what you do is easy, then you kind of think, well, would you like to give it a try? Here's 6 different subjects I need you to write on, and you've got 6 hours to do it in. It is quite hard to do, and also to be fresh every time. And you need to keep being fresh. You need to keep thinking of new ideas. Some of my clients use me a bit like a sounding board, because they work on their own and they need somebody to sort of discuss ideas with. So they are coming to me saying, what do you think? What should I do? What can I do better? What can I do as my next step in my own marketing campaign? So I'm always having to think about other people's marketing campaigns as well as my own personal business marketing campaigns. So it's quite a lot of pressure. People seem to think that if you do social media posts, that they're going to get results turned around in a couple of weeks' time. They'll suddenly get loads of orders coming through. It's not as easy and it's not as simple as that. But that's what people seem to think. So but you have to be, for me, I like to make sure I'm matched up with the right clients who appreciate the work I do.
No, absolutely. I think that as your business grows and as your demand grows, you, in the politest way possible, can pick and choose with who and what and what projects you take on, because I think it's important that when you do anything that you can sing from the same hymn sheet as the client, but also be able to believe in the goal that they want to push for, so then you can be as passionate about that goal.
Yes, absolutely. And but my clients, they almost become your friends, and you want them to succeed. And a lot of them are small business owners themselves, so it's you want to see them succeed, and you also know that the more success my clients have, the more success I have. I can use them for referrals, and I can use them for recommendations. If they're not doing well, they're not going to be. It means it's a reflection on my own business and my own ability. So it's always in my interest for my customers to be doing well, because it reflects on me.
Yeah, No, absolutely, and and then it's like, oh well, we got work from XYZ that just so happily I did, or etc. I think in that way it's pretty good as well. Is there like anything specifically that you haven't been given the opportunity to do that you really, really want to do or could want to do in the future?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um,
There may not be at all. Right, that's why I let throw in this question because normally it's
I would like to get more involved in website development. Um, I know there's companies, obviously you have website agencies who build and do a great job. But I have some clients who just want me to do bits and pieces on their websites. So for me personally, and just to grow my own knowledge, I'd like to get to be able to have the opportunity to do more on websites, on the maintenance side, and just uploading, managing. I mean, at the moment, I do upload sort of blogs and what have you onto websites. So, just from a personal point of view, of just my own interest's sake, I'd like to be able to do more on websites.
mm-hmm. Okay, no, that's interesting. I think that there's definitely. It's funny. I was having a conversation with a client the other day, and we were talking about how websites have kind of come full circle in the respect to 6, 7 years ago. You really needed a website because it was the new thing, or like possibly even 10 years ago, you really needed a website because it was the new thing, and then sort of as social media became more prevalent, then you didn't. Did you really need a website? That was the question, right? What was the website going to do? And now since COVID, it's been very kind of now flipped back on itself and said, well, you definitely need a website because more people are going to look you up the old-fashioned way by googling you or whatever, and then how do you get inquiries through your website and etc. It's kind of a portal to have a conversation outside of the opposite, or the other portals that you have, such as Instagram message, Facebook message, telephone, etc. In that respect. So, do you see kind of anything? I guess some more in the social media space. Do you have anything which is specifically like you think it's going to be really, really good in, say, the next year? Whether that's kind of content or a kind of direction or a kind of platform?
Um, I think that just going on the website conversation, I think websites have done a full circle, but they've also, people expect a lot more. And because of the whole of COVID, they are now looking for bookable, kind of where you can actually buy products. So websites are becoming shop fronts for people. But just moving on to your second question about social media, I think making Facebook, making social media platforms, making Instagram, they are becoming, I think that there's going to be there has been a move, and I think there will continue to be a bigger move towards online shopping via social media platforms. So I think it's not going to just be content of this is what we can do, and this is some really interesting information for you, or this is who we are. I think it's Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram's going to be it has exploded. It's I think probably now the biggest platform. I think it's just going to continue to grow as people can buy from Instagram. And I think that's probably the area to be of interest, really. And how do the other platforms develop, and are they going to keep up with the ability for people to shop online, not just from a website anymore, but they want to shop online on the social media platforms. Things like TikTok and that's what everyone's using. How is that going to work?
Mm. No, definitely. I think that there's a lot of a lot of merit and a lot of interesting changes happening, and will be happening in the next, say, 4 or 5 months, in regards to how and what do we go about doing in the regards to how we actually what our day-to-day shopping habits are, and how do we buy, what do we buy. And I think COVID kind of puts steroids on that, in that respect. Moving a little bit back to business specifically, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who, from one reason or another, so whether that's they had a lot of time during lockdown, or they've possibly been made redundant or possibly will find themselves being made redundant in the coming months, unfortunately. There's going to be a lot of people who ask the question of, as you said, when you were made redundant, why specifically, or what am I doing, right? What am I doing with my life right now? And they may find the answer to that question is, I want to run XYZ business, right? What kind of advice from your own experience would you give to people who are looking to start and develop something for themselves, or something, a business, or whether that's a shop, or whether that's a cafe, or whatever it is, that are looking to start, say, now?
I would say, and from my own experience, you obviously find something that you're passionate about. So for me, what I was passionate about was helping other people, and wanting to help small businesses. I didn't want to help big corporates. I wanted to help small businesses. So that was what was in my heart, and that's what my passion was. So find something that you actually care about, you're passionate about, you want to do. That's something that's going to make you smile every day. And then once you kind of got that idea, or set up that business, the biggest thing is to talk to people. Talking to and networking, really. I spent months and months just networking and talking to people and meeting people, and not only does it grow your circle of knowledge, but you meet some really fascinating people, and you realize your whole world kind of opens up, and you see what other people are doing, and you can become inspired by other people, and other people can give you good advice or guidance. So I would just say, if you're setting up your own business, is to talk to people. I know it can be difficult, especially through COVID, to talk to people, but with the likes of Zoom and Skype, even just the good old telephone, talk to people, keep in contact with people, make sure that when you see people, you meet them, to follow up, and to keep in touch every few months. You just drop them a line, an email, or phone them, and just see how they go, how they are. You find that the more you keep in touch with people, the more you're in the forefront of their minds. So they might not necessarily need your business right now, but they might need it in the future, or they might come across somebody else who might need your services. So you want them to be able to recommend you rather than recommending your competitor. So if you're going to set up a business, I would say be passionate about it, and to talk to people and keep in contact.
No, that's good to hear. I mean, for me, that's, I think, there's obviously a lot more that goes into it, but I think the cause there, and something which I'm seeing, whenever I ask that question for a lot of people, a lot of people normally answer it with, find something you're passionate about, right? Because I think that's really, really important, and something which a lot of small business owners have, is this raw fire passion for whatever it is they do. And I think that's really, really important to find that. And if you haven't found that yet, I think it's going to be one of those things where you haven't tried enough things yet, right? I think it's one of those things where you just need to try enough things, and eventually you'll see something where you see potential in it. Something which I think for me would be, well, personally interesting to hear, but also something I like to kind of throw in was, what was your kind of, I guess, expectations, or thoughts on when you heard about me in Brunter Media, from when we actually first connected? Well, firstly, how did we first connect? And then secondly, what was your thoughts on the business, and the service and the product, and me?
Okay. So
And I won't be offended if you say, oh, he's a cunt, by
you
the way.
can't say that on.
Um,
Well,
I can. It's my podcast. Haha.
no, we met at FSB meeting, which, even though I'm not a member of FSB, I actually really enjoy going to those meetings, because it's just a really nice bunch of people. So thank you to FSB for that. And I felt that you came across as somebody who was actually interested. You were interested in me. You were interested in explaining what you did, and the way that you're always in contact with me, which always keeps you in the forefront of my mind. And there's a lot of synergy between our two businesses, and I'm always making sure if I need somebody with your expertise and knowledge, I don't know anybody else who does what you do, and I would fully trust to be able to recommend you to any of my clients, or indeed anybody else I meet when I'm out and about. So I think that you you have a very good work ethic, and what you're putting out there and what I see on the different social media platforms, it's good. It's good content, and it's something that you are going to want to stop and look at. And you actually change things as well. It's not always the same. You do make it varied. So it's I would say I would highly recommend you to anybody. If anybody wanted your services, what you're offering.
No, I appreciate that firstly, but I think it's the reason why I asked that is for me it's very interesting to hear from other people about how they see it, because I'm very kind of, my head's down looking at what am I doing, how am I doing it, why am I doing it, etc. So I get very engulfed, I guess is the best word, with that. So for me it's, I try to find opportunities, or try to find situations where I can sort of see or hear from people who have more of an outside perspective. So it is lovely to hear that the work I'm doing is I guess good in a simple short term, but no, that's that. It's interesting to hear the different perspectives that people have as well. So I think, and I know we're pushing a little bit for time, so is there anything specifically that we haven't covered that you would like to cover or talk about?
Oh, you've got me there. Not really. I mean,
No, it's fine. Again, like, it's just like a kind of a catch-all. You don't necessarily have to have an answer for it. It's just there might have been something or a question that you may have for me that you have thought about through this conversation that I like to give the anyone who comes on the podcast a opportunity to explore any avenues that they feel may be valuable as well.
Okay. No, not really.
If there was any. And for those who may be interested in possibly asking for you to do some work, or possibly just want to have a chat, or etc., or find out some more, where's the best place for people to contact you, and how can people sort of see what you do?
Okay, so if people wanted to contact me, the best place would be to probably go to my LinkedIn or my Facebook page, which is under pink_spag_Sarah. Or indeed, they could always contact you, Carlton, and you could always put them in touch with me.
Indeed, that is, and I will link Sarah's stuff in the description of this video, or on the Facebook post when this goes live as well, to make it very, very easy for anyone who does want to follow through.
Yeah, I mean, email, phone, it doesn't really matter. I'm always, the one thing I've learned through working with a variety of different people is that everybody likes to be communicated with through different channels. And so therefore I'm always on Messenger and WhatsApp and email, and on LinkedIn messages, and on phone and mobiles and what have you. So it really doesn't matter what medium people want to contact me with. I'm always kind of available to talk, and happy to talk to people. Even if it's just run ideas, but people just don't really know what they want, and I'm really happy just to have a chat and help them, give them ideas with their marketing if they need it.
No, absolutely. No, I think it's definitely a needed thing, or a needed skill to have, but also I think that you're doing it for the right reasons, which is great to see. And then I think there's some businesses that unfortunately do it for the wrong reasons, which is just making profit and as much profit as possible, etc., etc., etc. And I think to me anyway, for business, there's a lot more to business than just making profit, and I think that's really important. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope.
One thing I was actually thinking about, like to say, is to anybody who's actually listening, and if they're thinking about outsourcing, is not to be scared. A lot of people are very scared about outsourcing because, especially if they're the small business owner who, their business is their baby, they don't think that anyone else will be able to do the job as well as they could. And they don't want to let go. And actually, delegation is really, really key if you're wanting to grow your business, to be smart at how you run your business. And actually, by outsourcing some of the tasks, you would be able to free yourself up as a business owner to concentrate on what actually makes you money and what gives you enjoyment. Because not every task in running a business is enjoyable to everybody. Some people, like doing the creative side. Some people don't like, when they hate doing the bookkeeping. So I would say, don't be afraid to outsource your work. And talk to, there's lots of VAs out there, and talk to us and just say, what are your fears, and we'll try and sort of alleviate those fears, because the only way you're going to grow is by delegation and getting rid of the tasks that you don't really want to do. And for that's why our strap line at Pink Spaghetti is, we are your 25th hour. So if you had another hour every day, what would you do with it? I could take an hour of your work. What would you do in that time?
Yeah, or possibly 2 or 3 or 4, etc.
Exactly, exactly.
Well.
What as a business owner could you do if you had an extra hour every day to do? What extra could you do for your business, and how could you grow?
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think it's definitely, and I think that just talking personally anyway, for me, I think the more I've kind of looked to grow Brandon Media, the more that I've understood that delegation is important to do in the right contexts, in that respect as well. So, what bits absolutely can no one else do outside me? Or would I not want anyone else to do outside me? But then there is obviously then things that people probably could do or probably should do. Whether that's a virtual assistant or another member of you, whether that's a outsourced team or a actually in-house team. The team concept is still the same. How you go about actually obtaining those members of those teams will change depending on the approaches that you are looking to do, and also then where you are at in business as well.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid to outsource. It's scary. I know some people find it very scary, the idea of it, but it's once you make that leap, you won't look back.
Cool, and that's a wonderful note, I think, to end on. So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Sarah. We got into marketing a little bit more than I originally expected, but I hope you still found it valuable and still took some stuff from it. As I said in the intro, I'll leave her links in the description down below if you're interested in talking to her about what she can do for your business. But thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. And is there anyone you would like me to interview on the podcast? Feel free to let me know also in the comment box down below. And I'll see you next week for a brand new creative that we're going to be interviewing and talking about all things photography and all things videography and all things moving pictures. So that'll be fun. But thank you so much for coming back once again. I'll see you very soon.